The Canadian immigration lawyer, and I am here with a special guest. It's not Alicia today, it's Igor, a future immigration lawyer, which there's light at the end of the tunnel, isn't there, Igor? After everything that you're going through, we can see a light, can't we?
Yes, finally. 3 years from the time when I landed in Canada, now I'm getting closer to the end of this path.
Indeed. So Igor is currently a paralegal. That's what we call him. He's so much more than that within the office, but what title do you give him? He helps us with all kinds of things from our website to technical issues to helping on client files, you name it. He does it all for us. So we're super happy to have him a part of Healthy Immigration Law, and he's my guest today on the Canadian Immigration Institute live Q&A. So Alicia had a Canadian Bar Association meeting. She is the chair over the planning committee for the upcoming immigration conference for the Canadian Bar Association, the National Immigration Conference. She's one of the co-chairs that is running the conference. And so she had a meeting today that went right at noon and she couldn't get out of it. And so we're excited. It's going to be in Ottawa, and it'll be a great conference. We always get the government speakers to come and the top immigration lawyers across the country to come speak on the various immigration challenges that we're all going through, right? Including this latest one, Igor, which is, I think those who were watching the live stream yesterday had the privilege of watching us show the release of the most recent round of invitations right at the tail end when I was wrapping things up. And I was having people post some comments, and people were saying, oh, wow, there's a new draw. And you even were able to catch it and send a little notification. So we're able to talk about it. But this has been a mess. So as we wait for people to connect in for this live stream, we'll wait for a few more people to join us before we get into the real meat and potatoes of this discussion. But yes, yesterday, finally, they resumed rounds of invitations, kind of, sort of, not without some problems. But you can see, obviously, the lowest score was really high. So it jumped back up to 507. And it's pretty clear why that happened, because they haven't done a draw for over a month. So if you look here, 507 was the lowest CRS score, but they did do a large 5,500 draw, which ranks up there pretty high. So if we go down here to the previous rounds and we just take a look at it, I like this ability to sort. You can see here 507, we did take a big jump back up, but that was because the last draw was, almost 2 months, November 23rd, all the way to January the 11th. So once again, it was a no program specified draw, but you can see they jumped up to 5,500, which is a really high round of invitations. And if we just search here and just see where it ranks up all time, of course, nothing is going to touch the 27,332 back on February the 13th, the Feb 13ers, we used to call them, under the Canadian Experience class. And you can see for all of the Canadian Experience class, the only time there's ever been a larger number invited has been when it has been a Canadian Experience class. This is the first time where they've reached this new height with a no program specified draw alone. So that's kind of an interesting development. It just goes to show that they're not afraid to extend it beyond 5,000, which was the previous record. They've extended it all the way to 5,500. So there you go. So as we go back and we look at these rounds of invitations, there's a couple things that I'm going to talk to you guys about. Looks like we've got a bunch of people that have now piled in. So one of the questions I have for you as you're listening, I want you to tell us if you've received an invitation to apply, excuse me, and if you have not received an invitation to apply, are you one of those many people that were over 507 and still didn't get an ITA? Or better yet, were you one of the individuals who has already almost landed, gotten their e-copers or otherwise, and got an invitation to apply? So the system is definitely whacked. And yeah, I'm not sure exactly what is the, what's the ongoing technical issues, but I'm pretty sure if our dear government was a private company, they would be out of business right now. But that's kind of where we're sitting. So we look forward to your thoughts on this, your comments. So please share if you received an ITA, share if you're one of those individuals that was over 507 but did not receive an ITA, or one of those individuals who really has already received it, applied, and then got another one. So yes, there is problems for sure within the mix here. So what do you
Mark,
think
it
about
got
that?
me.
What do you think about that, Igor?
Yeah, it got me thinking. What would be your prediction for the CRS score by the end of 2023?
Yeah.
Now that this being a first draw in 2023, do you think it will go down to 450?
Yeah, that's a good question. And it is absolutely 100% a possibility. It is. And why? Why is it a possibility? Well, I knew you were going to ask me this, Igor. This is why there's the possibility right here. It's this thing. We just show the law, you guys. We don't show our own spin. But this is Bill C-19, and what a dog's breakfast. So this thing is just chock full of just an absolute ton of different things. But embedded within here, Bill C-19, which everybody talks about, is these magical powers that, and I don't know if I can pull our friend up on, yes, I can. Compliments of Minister Fraser here. So compliments of Mr. Fraser, and he can even kind of dance a bit. Yay! He now has some pretty amazing powers, broad sweeping powers. And so because of these powers that he has that were, basically allocated to him via Bill C-19, he now has the ability, and I'm just going to flip back here so I'm in the right location. There we go. He now has the ability to do targeted draws. And when has he said that he's going to do these draws? Sometime in the spring, which we don't know. And if I tried to once again pull up the minister and say, what do you mean by the spring? No, I'm not hearing anything. So your guess is as good as mine. But if he was to start doing targeted draws, then it would completely blow to pieces the whole concept of the CRS. The only reason the comprehensive ranking system is so that the scores are so critical now is because it's all based on human capital and the core points. If the minister decides to start doing draws, say for any post-grad work permit holder with 1 year of Canadian work experience at a tier 3 or higher, well, then that could drastically drop it and we could very well see 450. And so who knows what it's going to look like. If we went with just pure human capital and pure no program specified draws, just like we have right here, and if we go back and look historically at the rounds of invitations, if we just do no program specified draws, you can see, and I'm actually going to select, I got lumped into the PNPs. Hang in there, guys. I'm going to find the top of our no program specified. Okay, so you can see here from a date standpoint, the no program specified draws got down to 491 when they consistently did draw after draw after draw. Okay, every 2 weeks they did it. It slowly started to get down to about 491. But before that, if you look historically at the draws for no program specified, you can see that the lowest it has gotten down to in what I call the modern era, that's when they started to give points for French language, for siblings in Canada. 468 was the lowest that it got to back in December, right before Christmas in 2020. And so at that time, they'd consistently done the 5,000 draws, you can see here, which pushed it slowly down to 468. Will we ever get to 468 again if they are doing just no program specified draws? I don't know. Like, I really, really doubt it. At this time, all of the French language speakers hadn't had time to study and practice and write their tests. And so we have a lot more French language speakers that are really starting to skew this. So I don't know if we'll ever get down to 468 if it's no program specified. And I would be almost positive this year if they just did no program specified and the minister didn't use his powers under C-19 here. If he just focused on no program specified, I really don't see 468 being a possibility as well, because there's so many, post-grad work permit holders with Canadian work experience. So that is my prognostication in terms of where the scores could potentially be. But the minister at any point in time, he can make a decision to, I need to make him more accessible here for me. The minister could literally do anything that he wants to do, and just surprise, he's got the power. So, all right, let's give some shout outs to people that are here. Make sure when you're posting your questions, put a Q in front of it, and we know it's a question. We'd love for you that are attending to post in the comments, whether you're watching on YouTube or Facebook. I don't know if we have any Twitter followers here or LinkedIn. Wherever you're tuning in from, please post where you're from and what stage of the process you're at. If Express Entry is what's driving the ship. Those who have questions, you can put a Q in front of it. If you want to bump it up ahead of everybody else, you can always use the super chats, or you can join our YouTube channel. And I think, Igor, I think a lot of people are not even aware that we have that feature. And so we treat those people just a little bit. Wait a minute here. Hang on. I'm coming back. There we go. Okay, there we go. I've got so many different screens here. Right here, we have a little join button where you can join and you can become a member of the Canadian Immigration Institute's YouTube channel. And there is a lot of little exclusive things that are available. It's only like $3 a month or something. It's not much. You can get some loyalty badges, custom emojis, member shout outs, priority reply to comments. So there's a bunch of things that you can do by joining the channel. So we encourage you to consider that. Okay, let's see what we've got. We've got Ash says, hello, Mark and Igor. Hello, Ash. Good to see you. Harjinder is joining us. Good to see you, Harjinder. Rashid is over in London, Ontario. Thanks for joining us, Rashid. And we will zip through the questions here. We've got Salim. He says, hi, Mark and Igor. Hello, Salim. Good to see you. All right. And let's see what else we've got here. Okay. So Ash has got a question. So he did a little super. So let's dive in and answer this. So, okay. Hey, Mark. So I have 517 CRS, still didn't get my ITA yet. It's been more than 24 hours since the draw. I learned French from scratch just to immigrate to Canada. I am going to give you that, Ash, because that's freaking awesome. Very cool. Just immigrate to Canada. What can I do to get my ITA? No reply from IRCC as usual. Sad. And I thought I'd turn that off. Oh, guess who's trying to call me, everyone? It is the Canadian Blood Services. So I am a proud blood donor, and I thought I'd shut that off. So that's interesting. Anyways, so there you go. I get calls from them to remind me to come, and there's a need for whatever type of blood you are. So that's how we roll here in Canada. And how much do we get paid in Canada, Igor, for donating blood? I'm putting Igor on the spot. See if he knows the answer to this.
I don't know.
It's all good. If you were in the US, yeah. But in Canada, we give our blood freely. So we get a cookie and a juice box to drink after. And that is what we get, as well as the satisfaction knowing that we're helping our fellow Canadians and permanent residents and everybody else who's here in case of accidents. So very, very cool. All right. So I will be visiting them. When they remind me, I usually go show up. All right. So there you go. So learn French from scratch. No reply as usual. Sad. I agree. Absolutely, Ash. And we are monitoring it. Okay. So watch, stay tuned. This is not the first time. The system, as you can see, is full of glitches. Like, it just boggles my mind. A switch from a 4-digit code to a 5-digit code caused all of this. The switch to tier caused all of this. Can you imagine, you guys, when the minister tries to start doing targeted draws, how well that's going to go? Huh. Maybe some of you, as you immigrate, should consider working for some of the external companies. And actually, there was a news report on how many millions and millions of dollars some of the external contracts are to, what was the name of that company? I can't remember that. It was in the news that their contracts with the Liberal government had expanded astronomically through the pandemic as they provided external consulting and I think it's development. I know Deloitte has also, I think, been involved with it as well. But anyways, it's not going so well. So maybe some of you who actually have skills and can get the systems working properly should reach out and, maybe see if you can get a job with the government contractors or the government themselves to help this along. All right. But our heart goes out to you, Ash. Just hang in there, my friend. Hang in there because there's lots of people that are in this situation. And that's why I brought it up right at the beginning. Okay. We'll hit one more super. And then before we jump in, so this is Raul. He says, my spouse visited my home country for a week after the police clearance certificate was issued. Will he need a new PCC again? Rules say you need PCC if you stay 6 months in a row. So, Igor, what do you think in this situation? Igor's learning. He's He went through this process himself, but the rules even changed since Igor went through. So someone had a police clearance certificate. Okay. Then after it was issued, and what we don't know here, Raul, is when the original police clearance certificate was issued. I'll bet you any money it was more than 6 months ago. So they went back for a week after it was issued. Will he need a new PCC again? So yes, PCCs are required if you stay more than 6 months in a row. But what do you think, Igor, in terms of police clearance certificate?
You'd need to get a police clearance certificate after you left the country. And once you revisit the country, you pretty much, like, this whole process pretty much resets. So you need to get a new one.
Yeah. And on the surface, Raul, many people have been confused about this. And I'll be honest, there's people who've gone back for a week and not stressed over it, submitted their application, and actually got it approved with no problem. But I can tell you that the 6-month rule, there's 2 factors at play. If you obtained your police clearance certificate after you left your country and you have not returned, and that's what the instructions say, then it will never expire. But if you go back and the police clearance certificate was issued longer than 6 months ago, then you will need to get a new one. And that's what I advise every single one of my clients, notwithstanding the fact some people have gotten through without having an issue with it. And I'll add one more little piece of information to you, Raul, because you've got a super chat here. I had many discussions with the former head over the Express Entry program about this. In fact, in this national conference that Alicia is helping to plan for the immigration lawyers across the country through the Canadian Bar Association, I was on a panel with one of the head officials, and this was one of the questions we brought up. And their response was specifically, if a person goes back for a holiday, for a week or so, we usually don't require a new police clearance certificate. Well, guess what, guys? I don't trust that at all, because I've had those discussions with the officers at those conferences, and then their low-level officer refuses it because the police clearance certificate they view was invalidated the moment the person returned back. So you can take your chances if you want to, but as for me and my clients, not on your life. If the original was too old, then, and here's Raul's response, yes, it was not issued more than 6 months ago. If it was not issued for more than 6 months ago, then you don't have to worry about it, Raul, as long as your EAPR is submitted before that police clearance certificate hits the 6-month mark. So if they go back and then come and then you file before the 6 months is out, then you are, then that's not a problem. And another thing I'll point out, Raul, is that I have had consults with people who have had their applications rejected for this exact reason. So officers have discretion to choose what they want to do. And you guys know how difficult it is to fix something when things go south. Well, that is, unless you seek advice, and this is a good segue for Cedric here. If you go to legal help, you can see we've got a ton of resources now. Cedric is driving the ship in the firm on our appeals and our litigation when we disagree with a refusal from IRCC. And one of those avenues is reconsideration or judicial review. And Cedric has a ton of information that explains it very, very easy to understand in the context of a refusal. But why in the world would we ever take a chance? So, Raul, in your situation, if you truly can file your EAPR before 6 months from the date that police clearance certificate was expired, well, that's really what you're looking at. But if the person, the spouse, if he goes back and then he comes back to Canada, and it's more than 6 months since that police clearance certificate was issued, then there is a very distinct possibility an officer could reject it. So I just don't take chances, not at all.
And Mark, I just wanted to add, Raul raised a really interesting topic, and because, so I'll put it in context. In the end of February, that's going to be exactly 3 years since I became a PR in Canada. And so time comes for me to apply for Canadian citizenship. So before coming to Canada, I used to stay in US. And so my question was, do I need a police clearance certificate from US? And ironically, rules are not that clear about police clearance certificate for citizenship applications, because you need to provide a certificate for every country where you stayed more than 183 days since the age of 18 for the last 4 years. And so the combination of those three factors may seem confusing to lots
Yeah.
of people.
Yeah.
And furthermore, they have examples when you need a police clearance certificate and when you don't. And in one of those examples, the example number one, they state that if you're stayed in the country of origin immediately before coming to Canada, you don't need to provide a police clearance certificate from that country. But they don't specify what is a country of origin. So lots of people will think, well, my country of origin, just like with the produce, is the country where I was produced, right? So
Yeah.
I'm a Ukrainian national, so my country of origin is Ukraine. But in fact, it's the country where you resided before coming to Canada. So lots of confusing stuff. And what got me thinking is, Raul, that's a great topic for a blog post. And I'll probably do some research and write a blog post for you. So you can go to our website and go to our blog and look for the new blog article soon.
Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of blog posts, and we've talked about this quite a bit. You can see Igor drafted one, Will Canada Accept More Immigrants in 2023? And all the lawyers contribute to producing blog posts on just tons of topics. So we strongly encourage you to go check that out. And of course, our YouTube channel, which is absolutely full of video content on all kinds of topics, including my big TR to PR top 6 takeaways on what I think Minister Fraser is going to be doing in this year of 2023. So you definitely want to check those things out. But yeah, it's, what it comes down to, Raul, is that I just don't take chances. So unless there's some reason why not to just get a new one, I will often err on the side of caution and do that. So you are very, very welcome, Raul. Okay, let's just take a few seconds, Igor. And what I want to do is I want to talk to you about your journey. So lots of people who come to Canada as professionals, sometimes they just are not sure exactly what it's going to take to be able to get their professional credentials recognized. So I thought I'd just give you a little bit of time, because Igor is on the path to becoming a lawyer who is called to the bar in the province of Alberta, and the newest member of our firm as an immigration lawyer. So he's on that path. And if we were to say how far along, well, maybe about 35% or 40% of the way there. But tell us just a little bit about, at a high level, what the experience has been like for you and what immigrants should expect when they're coming to Canada in terms of, just dedication, tenacity, and willingness not to give up.
Yeah, it's interesting topic, I would want to say, because when you come to a new country, you have to accept several facts. Fact number one, you come to a different society, which functions based on a different set of rules, starting from everything like how people maintain personal space, and ending with how people do business. And you have to take that into consideration, because the way you used to do things back in your home country would be way different here in Canada. So if you were an accountant for 20 years back in India, that doesn't mean that you know how the business runs in Canada. And so when you think about this topic from a perspective of Canadian employer, they also understand those differences. And don't get me wrong, they know that you are skilled. They know that if you're an accountant, you know how to count, how to multiply, how to divide numbers. But they want to make sure that you qualified and skilled to function in a Canadian society, in Canadian realities. That's why lots of Canadian employers, they consider your foreign experience, but they don't take it for granted. Especially speaking about law, from Ukraine, there are lots of people who used to work in legal field, but things work a little bit different in Ukraine, especially I would want to put it in a little concealed way, like in post-Soviet countries, things work differently in general.
So Igor, maybe you can just tell people a little bit about your education background. So yes, you're on the path to become a lawyer in Canada, but what was your path before you left Ukraine?
Yeah, so I I went to study in the National University Odessa Law Academy. I joined the faculty of Civil and Economic Law. That's when I finished my bachelor's. I switched to the faculty of International Law, and my goal was to become a lawyer in Ukraine. And the more I came to the point where I was about to graduate, I realized that the system works in a little bit different way than I expected, and I didn't want to become part of that system. So I wanted to move out of Ukraine and maybe search for a brighter future somewhere outside. So we decided with my wife that we would move to Poland, and we spent a year in Poland. We didn't find Poland as a country where we would want to stay for a long time, so it was just a transition step for us. And then we moved to United States. In the United States, we tried to adjust our status, and it took us 3 years before we got our passport request from RCC. Long story short, the story in US wasn't as happy as it was expected to be, and we decided that we need to look for another country where we want to stay permanently. US didn't work, and we immediately turned to Canada as an alternative. And once I came to Canada, I started working with Mark. Mark was the
You're
immigration
skipping the
lawyer.
whole step, man. You're skipping the whole step. Like how we even got in contact with each other. The nightmare that Igor and his dear wife Tatiana went through in coming to Canada. You just kind of jumped past all of that.
Yeah.
Maybe just touch on it briefly, because people need to understand that every person's life and journey is not this glorious thing that's posted on some, Instagram feed. Like the reality is that lots of people have to go over some pretty significant hurdles, some pretty stressful periods. And when they get through, then you just appreciate everything so much more. But so things didn't work out in the US for you, which is fine. But what happened?
Yeah, so we submitted an application with the use of a representative. She was a lawyer based out of California, and she was advised to us by our acquaintances. So when we reached out, we were advised to do a specific type of an application, which is really competitive, and it's really hard to get approved. And when we applied for this application, we had to submit the processing fees, the urgent processing fees, the legal fees, and it turned out to be more than $15,000 US. And a couple of days before we submitted the application, we realized that the application was pushed to a freelance sort of assistant who was not even inside the United States. So that was, I would not even say paralegal. That was probably like a personal assistant who was copy pasting the information from one application into another, and the application was bound to be rejected. And but it was too late already to respond, to react, and to switch an application to another lawyer because we had a couple of days before the deadline. So the application got submitted, and just as expected, it was refused, and we had to fight with the consequences of that. Obviously, nobody returned the money. Obviously, nobody took accountability for whatever happened. And we were advised that if we want to save the situation, we need to pay a little more money to get that situation fixed, or maybe apply for another type of an application. And that was not an option for us, so we decided to reach out for a consult with another U.S. immigration lawyer who considered all of our applications already submitted and considered all of the available options for us in U.S. And he just told us that it's not an option for us to stay here, and we better look for a country that would host us for on a permanent basis somewhere outside U.S.
Yeah.
And he advised Canada. I knew about Canada a little, but all I knew about Canada is that the province, the capital is not Toronto, and that they probably have lots of polar bears, and lots of snow and no people. and it's nowhere there in Canada, nothing. um, so we started immediately looking for a lawyer, and that's how I found Mark on YouTube. And Mark was the lawyer who helped us with the application, and that's how we got here.
Yeah.
So
And it was a battle, you guys. Like,
yeah,
IRCC would have probably refused if we had not really put up a strong application and really challenged them.
yeah,
Excuse me, because Igor, there were some issues on the US side because of the refusal. And lots of people are always concerned, oh, I'm afraid to say that things aren't going well in the US because Canada will refuse me. Well, the reality is you have to disclose everything. And that was one of the strengths of our application, was that we did not try to conceal anything. We put everything up front. And then I basically provided my legal opinion as to why they had no grounds for refusing him. And if they did, then we would go visit the federal court and have a little challenge, because this is an unsettled area of the law. And in the end, you still had to go through some US, the immigration enforcement process, which was super stressful, right? But in the end, the permanent resident application was approved, and you and Tatiana were able to come to Canada.
Yeah, it's interesting because if I dive into more details, I would want to share that we received a notice to appear in an immigration court, and my life just crashed. I mean, everything just crashed right in front of me. It's like everything that I was trying to build, just crashed, and I still had my application being processed in Canada, and I just didn't know whether it will be ever approved, and then we had this ADR request from RCC, and everything was looking really scary, and so we got this notice to appear. We had to fly to California to the court, and just before we hopped on a plane, maybe a day or two before the plane, I get this Skype message from Mark saying, check your email address. And so when I checked my email address, there was the passport request. So when we got to court, it was interesting because I had to explain to the judge that nobody ever wanted to get in a situation like that in US, and that we did everything that we could to maintain our status, and comply with all the limitations on our stay, and we had to explain that unfortunately, if US doesn't want to accept immigrants, there are countries that do want, and we asked the lawyer to grant us voluntary departure. And just as a proof that we will depart the country, we showed the passport request from Canada. And it was such a life-changing moment because I remember being in a courtroom, and we had a Department of Homeland Security staff sitting on the opposite side of the bench. And she, like how it works, you basically have like 20 people in a courtroom, and each of those people have like either some small things that they need to sort the courts, or like to hear the final decision on their application. And all of their files were like this thick. When the staff from the Department of Homeland Security picked our file, she had to bend, grab like this huge pile of documents. I think it was like about 500 or 600 pages of supporting material, and she was having a hard time even lifting this pile, and when she put it on a tray, she was like, oh, that was hard, and then the lawyers saw the pile, and they all were so surprised that despite of all of the efforts that were made, that's the conclusion of the story, that we have to leave the country. And I'm really grateful that Canada became our new home, and soon I'll become a citizen of this country. Yeah, so
awesome. So there's the story, you guys. That's a reality. And of course, after working with Igor, I realized right away, that he had huge potential, and it's the same reason that I have a lot of immigrants that work for the firm. It's because you guys are awesome.
So. And I consider myself lucky because with turning back to the beginning of that story of being used to do things a little bit different in your home countries, and why employers are reluctant to accept you as is, why they would want you to have this specific training is because they don't necessarily have enough experience working with foreign nationals. And Mark was the employer who agreed to take me into the law firm, because we had a chance to work together. And it was just a huge leap of faith from Mark's side. And it was a huge luck for me, because I could get a chance to prove that I can work in a Canadian environment. And not every employer has this ability to make this huge leap of faith. And I'm glad that it's all worked out. And I remember, Mark, I was watching one of your videos and you said, I have lots of clients, and with some clients I became like lifelong friends. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, that is a good sign, we probably can
whatever,
make
it
right? Yeah. And it worked out. So I'm really lucky. And I would want to encourage everyone who is in a hard situation like we were in US not to be discouraged, and try and keep trying. And if it doesn't work, keep trying more.
Yep, exactly. And we at Healthy Immigration Law are here to help. That's the bottom line. All right. So Yaroslavna says, thank you, Igor, for sharing your experience. So many people have no idea about their opportunities here in Canada. And that's true. And the challenges, right, that exist. Raul has one follow-up question here. He says, what if one visits the home country again after the acknowledgement of receipt? Well, in those situations, Raul, you submitted a complete application at the time in which it was filed. And so when you return, it's not an issue after you've already submitted your EAPR. Now, they could always come back and ask for you to provide an updated one. But when you submitted your application, it was a complete application. And therefore, as long as it meets the requirements at the time in which the officer does the completeness check assessment, then then you're going to be just fine. All right. Okering, Timothy here, he says, I got a refusal last month, thinking of reapplying, but the issue cited is lack of funds. How best can I do this, Mark? Well, Timothy, I strongly encourage you to slide over to our firm website and click on Speak to a Lawyer. And right now, Cedric is driving the ship on a lot of our rejected or delayed applications. And so this is one of his the significant areas that he is growing within our firm to support people in that situation. But you can literally book a consult with any of the lawyers within our firm. And pretty soon we'll have Igor up here as well. But yeah, that's what I recommend that you do. And for anyone, as our time very quickly is disappearing here on this special Q&A, remember every Wednesday and Thursday, so Wednesday mornings at 10, we do a Q&A, as well as usually Alicia joins me on the Thursday episodes. But like I said, she had a prior commitment helping to plan the National Immigration Conference for the Canadian Bar Association. And she's the chair that's kind of driving that ship this year. So she was unable to attend. So I invited Igor, the future immigration lawyer. And I guess the last little piece, Igor, is just on your journey. So you've, what do you have left in order to be able to become an actual lawyer in Canada? What are the steps that you have left? And you can kind of zip through this a little bit quicker.
I'll just paint the whole process real quick. So to become a lawyer in Canada, you have to apply for National Committee of Accreditation. That's the organization that evaluates your education. That's a completely separate process from WES, from ECA. Once you submit your legal credentials to that organization, they find if there is a match between your education and Canadian one. And if there is no match or a partial match, they will assign you the number of courses that you have to complete. So I was assigned 8 courses, of which I had to complete 4 courses through a substantial legal education. And I completed that requirement by finishing the Foreign Trained Lawyers program at the UFC. And I had 3 subjects remaining on my list, of which I already wrote 2 exams. I'm waiting for the grade for my second exam, and then I have just 1 exam left. So that put in a time frame probably means that I will get can apply for the student law status by end of June, beginning of July. So just 1 exam left.
Yeah, that's exciting. Very exciting. Ash says, very nice and inspirational story. As someone from India who's stuck between the Netherlands and the Canadian immigration process, your story gives me a lot of courage, and that's awesome. And then Les Lynn says, what's the name of your firm? Well, we are Healthy Immigration Law. And so if you go right up at the top here, if you Google holthylaw.com, or just look in the description of the video wherever you're watching, and you can just click on the link and it will take you right here to our firm website. And you can learn all about us, about our team. You can learn about our approach, which we think it's a, it's a different process to most immigration law firms. There's a direct lawyer to client collaboration. So there's no middle people. So it's all about lawyers working directly. It's kind of a client-centered, firm-supported model, which we absolutely love. And so there's direct collaboration, lawyer with the client. And when it comes to litigation, it's one-on-one legal representation. So this is all you can see from our firm website. And those of you who are not able to get your questions answered today, the part of the reason we always look at is whether or not the question is of general importance. And if it's a general question that's going to benefit everybody, then we usually pull it up and we answer it in the lives. If it's a question that really only relates to you, then we usually ring our little triangle and we direct you back to book a consult there. Okay, we got a couple more supers that are piling in here. So Zuzu says, do you think CRS 496 can be invited in the next round or in February? Well, in all honesty, if you go back and we look at the ministerial instructions and we see what's been done in the past, you can see here as we go through this. And if we look at, let's go back right to the beginning here, and I'm going to re-sort through here. Just give me a second as we get to the main round of invitation page. When you look at where we were at immediately before January the 11th, yesterday, when the draw happened, it shows how many people were actually in the pool. And I wish I would have taken a snapshot yesterday, because I looked at this yesterday to see how many people were actually in the pool at the level of 491 to 500. Well, at the time in which the round of invitation occurred, you can see here that there were over 3,000 people that all entered in above 500, and 2,000, almost 3,000 people that are all nominees, provincial nominees. Now, technically you can hit over 600 without a nomination. For example, if you have French language and you already have a high human capital, or you're a 00 knock, like a high tier knock, then you have the ability to get an extra 200 points, which pushes you over. But generally speaking, these are a lot of PNPs. There were no PNP draws. There were no draws. So those people piled in here, and these ones piled in here. And you can see that's why not all of these were drawn. So some are still left here. And then 491 and above, there's still 3,141 in here. And so how many new people at these high levels piled in? Well, I would say probably 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, maybe 10,000, maybe even more piled in at the level. And if we go back here, 496, I would say even above 496. So is it possible for it to drop below 496 by February when it's January the 12th? Well, what it depends on is how big of draws they're going to do. So if there's 2 draws and they do each of them at 5,500, there's 11,000. So technically, if they flushed everybody out, there's an outside chance that maybe 496 would be enough. But you can see how competitive it is. Now, understand there are only so many people in Canada with scores this high, and it takes time to achieve them. So it's not like there's 5,000 people just waiting to pile in above the 600 level or even above the 500. It takes time for them to feed in. But you can see it's super competitive. There's lots of people in Canada. In particular, there's candidates that are now hitting a year of work experience in Canada. And just for those of you who are express entry aficionados, if we go to the CRS points and the actual criteria, you'll see that one of the ways that you get the extra bonus points, so obviously you can get a lot of points for Canadian work experience, but one thing that a lot of people don't understand is that for federal skilled worker program applicants that are outside Canada, we know that when they're going to apply to immigrate, these skill transferability points are the most important factor, because there's like 100 extra points up for grabs. And so if you have good language and post-secondary degree, you can get up to 50 points. Or if you have Canadian work experience and post-secondary, you can get those extra 50 points. Well, the reality is for a lot of people that are applying, when they come to Canada, they are often able to get this 50 points, but it's this one that can be kind of problematic for them. So they might have good language, but they don't have the foreign work experience. And so when they have the Canadian work experience and a like high post-secondary degree, they can get that extra 50 points. And the way you get this is actually by obtaining 2 years of Canadian work experience. So people are getting another 25-point boost by having 2 years compared to just 1 year of Canadian work experience. And if we jump down just a little bit further, I'll show you the specific breakdown, what I'm talking about. And lots of people just don't understand how this works. But when it comes to skill transferability, you can see here as we go down to the Canadian work experience. So if you have 2 or more years, and then here you have at least 2 years of Canadian work experience versus 1, just rolling over from 1 to 2 years will bump you from 25 to 50 points. So that's part of the reason why individuals, the scores are staying high, is because there's so many hundreds of thousands of international students that are transitioning through. So is it possible in February? I guess there's an outside chance depending upon how many invitations are extended, but it's going to be tough. All right, Leslyn, thanks so much, she says. And then, okay, it looks like Ash has got another one. All right, I've got a client actually coming to my house today, guys. So excuse me, I'm going to have to wrap this up pretty quick, but let's hit just a couple more. So one more thing, if my ITA doesn't come, even though I have 517, is it a good idea to withdraw my profile and reapply right before the next draw? No, I wouldn't. Leave it in. IRCC understands this stuff. There were problems before back in November with the last draw they did, and they have slowly been trying to work through it. So I highly recommend you don't do that. You don't resubmit a new profile, at least for one more draw until we can see what's happening. And then after that draw, if you're still not drawn, then there's some kind of a glitch in the system. Because remember, some people have actually received an ITA after they've filed their application. So it's like a second one. So there's clearly some issues with it. And then Zuzu, let's see. Aren't most of these people in the 500 plus range have been flushed out yesterday because the score distribution is right before the draw, isn't it? Please kindly advise. Well, yes, absolutely they have. But what you have to understand is that by the time they do another draw, it's going to fill back up again. And so over the course of 1 year, of 1 month, maybe a month and a half, all of these people were flushed out back in November. So there was nothing here in November. There was nothing at the level of 491 to 500. You'll remember that the draw immediately before, let's just go here. All right, so if you look here, you'll see that the previous draw, no program specified, November right here, went down to 491. So 4,700 people were flushed out at that stage. So if you look now, you know, what transpired, all of these people filled in and all of these people filled in all before this draw in the last month and a half. And in fact, this number climbed up as well. I seem to remember it being around 10 or 9,000, I can't remember, that were in this category. So these were all still here. So these are all basically new people, all of these here. And that happened in a month and a half because everyone else was flushed out. So that's part of the reason why, you know, I don't think in February it's going to drop down to that level, but it just depends on how many that are extended. Okay.
Mark, I also see there's a question from Anurag about the proof of funds for PNP. Anurag, I think I've sent the link in the chat, which will lead you to our blog post about the proof of funds for PNP. You can find that on healthylaw.com. And the name of the blog post is Proof of Funds and the Provincial Nominee Program under Express Entry. It will have the answer to your question.
And let's see if this works here. Sometimes this doesn't work for me, but you can search all of our blog posts because we have so many. I'm assuming it's probably going to say there's nothing here, and then I have to redo it, but that's okay. I think if I redo it, it will maybe pull something up here. This level, it seems to search a little bit better. I don't know why, or maybe not. Well, there you go. So this is my own, the problems I have with my own search feature, and I don't know why it is. Okay, well, we won't worry about that. Anyway, so if you go to the blog, like Igor said, we could find it. It is here. And I don't know, how long ago was it that Alicia did that one?
Mark, I've sent you the link to that blog post.
Did you? Okay, Igor, he's more effective and efficient than I am. So here we go. So this is it. So so Cedric actually went through and did this
Okay.
blog post on proof of funds, and yeah, it's not easy to know exactly what fits and what doesn't, but he goes into great length explaining the legalities and how you know, how you can kind of figure out basically what you need, and then some advice at the end. So lots of these are all on our website, Holthe Immigration Law. All right. I don't think we have any more supers. I think we've hit all of those ones. And today was kind of a special little, you know, introduction back to Igor. And we've done past live streams, Igor and I, but I'm excited to see Igor work his way forward. And hopefully, well, I know it will happen. It's just a matter of time. He's going to get everything done to be admitted as a student at law here with our firm. And then he'll work for a year and get training. And then he'll have the ability to be a full-fledged Canadian lawyer. All right. Well, thanks so much, Igor, for joining today. It was great. And we will be back, like I said, on Wednesday next week at 10 a.m. Mountain Time. That's when I go live. And then Alicia and I will be back here next Thursday at the same time doing this Q&A. Remember always, if you have questions, our firm is available to help. And it's not just a matter, you guys, of us just providing, you know, consultations to people. Sometimes people don't understand this. The consultation is just the first step in the process, and you can choose who you want. But what we absolutely love to do is when you hire us to help you with your applications. And that's where you can go to About Us, check on our approach, and just read and learn how our approach differs from a traditional law firm. Instead of having people that you work through that are paralegals or in between, and that was one of the problems that Igor ran into in the US, you work directly with us. And who is us? It's our team. It's directly with me and Alicia, Chanel, Cedric, and very soon Igor will be joining the ranks.
Yeah,
All right.
with this kind of approach, it wouldn't be possible for me to discover 2 days before the deadline that my application is completely screwed.
Yep. That's exactly, and that's what happened, right? And that's what would happen. So looks like we have Leslyn says, I'll reach out to you guys. We look forward to connecting with you, Leslyn. And she says, some fake people are around. I'm in Antigua and Barbuda. Yes, absolutely. It's just so painful to watch people. You know, I just had a consult with someone just the other day who's, you know, ghost consultant had told them that they couldn't add a spouse into their application after they submitted their EAPR, that there wasn't a way to do it. And anyways, it's a long story short, but Cedric is actually now working with them to try to fix it because it is a mess. It is a complete and total mess. So, but that's what we do. We help all of you in your moment of need. All right, Igor, thanks for connecting in. Thanks everybody else for tuning in. Have a wonderful evening, afternoon, morning, wherever you are in the world, and we'll see you again. Take care.